You can't get sponsored.
You know, we're going to keep this train moving. You guys are just utterly ridiculous this morning. I'm glad you guys had a good Christmas. But we're going to move it into the man who reminds women over 50 how to say hello again. He's a plant formulation specialist. And, of course, that's right. It is none other than Mr. Saman Rizani.
Hello, hello, hello. I wasn't prepared. Gotta get my shit together here.
Must have been busy rolling a joint. And
I was
yeah,
busy
exactly.
One.
He delivers the stories like he's rolling a blunt.
Exactly.
Hey, fuck you guys. Okay?
On in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Stop the cap.
Stop the cap. All right, give me just a second here. Now I'm all flustered tonight. Now you got me all flustered on television.
Come on, Saman.
Remember my first time reading a news story.
Give him a little Christmas pass over here.
I'm actually so full. I can't even think. I'm gonna eat this meal. I think I'm gonna digest this meal for the next 2 days. Christmas was great. I hope everyone had a great Christmas holiday, Kwanzaa, Festivus, Hanukkah. All of the celebratory things. And I'm just trying to be as American as possible since I was a youngster. So Christmas is pretty big in our holiday celebrations, but it's meaningless for us other than just the consumerism of it all, just like most everybody else. So that was our day. This article coming from Reuters. This is a Reuters article focusing on Colombia, and so hopefully we have some more discussions about the global cannabis trade. From Reuters, focus Colombia's cannabis industry in crisis over regulatory political hurdles. In Sobachoc, Colombia, December 21. More than 17 acres of land owned by a Colombian-Canadian company near Bogota were once meant to grow 25 varieties of cannabis, but over the past year, weeds have overtaken the greenhouses and 200 of its 218 employees have been fired. The company is victim of long-running problems for Colombia's legal marijuana industry, which attracted huge investments after cannabis was legalized for medical use in 2017. At the time, Colombia was one of the first countries in Latin America to pass such legalization and held out the promise of legalizing marijuana sales for recreational use next. 6 years later, a number of local cannabis producers are facing closure because of regulatory demands for expensive and years-long studies on medicine composition before products can be sold domestically, say industry players. Analysts and sector industry associations say as well. In addition, a law to legalize recreational use of cannabis failed for the 5th time in Congress last week, and a measure coming into force in February will oblige companies to destroy inventories which are over 2 years old. Sounds like New York. We're going from bad to worse. It's slow agony and the clock is going against us with pressure from partners and without cash flow, said the owners of Colombian-Canadian company who asked for anonymity because they are seeking a new investment to save his $20 million business that he set up in 2018. Since cannabis for medical use became legal, the sector has attracted an estimated $500 million in foreign investment, but much of that has not been recouped, according to industry group Asacolcana. Many investors are from Canada, which was itself in the process of legalizing recreational use of marijuana and was considered a potential destination for Colombian exports. The industry overcame regulatory bottlenecks on exports in 2021, but its fortunes have slumped sharply this year. Some 200 companies shuttered this year, bringing the number of closures to 600, or nearly 50% of the companies founded since the law legalizing medical use has passed, according to Asolcana. All this comes despite leftist President Gustavo Petro's stated ambition to relax the policy on marijuana, whose domestic consumption is higher than that of Colombia's more infamous drug crop, cocaine. Colombian law allows people to grow up to 20 plants and carry up to 20 grams for personal use, though selling marijuana is illegal. Unless the sale of cannabis for recreational use is made legal, the local market will remain in the hands of the criminals rather than licensed companies, said Canna president Camilo de Guzman. Chiron Life Sciences, ticker KHRN.V, a company with operations in Colombia that is listed in Toronto, has already shuttered a $15 million medical marijuana plantation and a cosmetics line made with cannabis. It still serves about 5,000 patients in the clinics in Colombia, where it is allowed to distribute personalized cannabis-based medications, but has closed similar clinics in the United Kingdom, Brazil, and Peru. Marijuana is not covered by Colombian insurance providers, a huge break on sales, said Chiron president Alvo Torres. Several industry executives said that they expect more industry-friendly rules, including those needed for insurers to cover marijuana for medical use, would follow the 2017 law, but the progress has been slow. If the regulation is achieved, industry could grow again. The problem is how to hold on until then, Torres said. Chiron stock was trading at $4.05, 5 Canadian cents, dollars in 2019, but slumped to 4 cents in Canadian dollars is in May, the last time it was traded. Without a legal domestic market for cannabis, companies operating out of Colombia are limited to pursuing exported sales from which average 5 million a year, according to government trade organization ProColombia. It was a mistake not developing the markets before, said Mauricio Kraus, director of Plena Global, which exports to the UK, Germany, Israel, and Australia. We don't have a local market where we can support cash flow. In response to Reuters' questions, Colombia's food and medicine regulator, INVIMA, said in most cases, those seeking authorization for medical marijuana products present incomplete documentation. It is necessary to comply with established legal and technical requirements, it said. The Ministries of Health, Justice, and Agriculture, also known to have a hand in marijuana regulation, did not respond to the request for comment. The Petro government has not detailed why regulation on marijuana front has been slow, but the trouble echoes those of the past two administrations who face similar issues. And that's the story out of Colombia today. Guys, what do you all have to say about, the similarities, between the U.S. and the, external, U.S. markets? I don't think Colombia is necessarily unique to this. I think it's all over. But there's a distinct difference in the way that our businesses work. The dispensary model here versus, the pharmacy model in other countries, namely Colombia, as we heard in the story. So, what do we think? There's obviously more. There's more of a local market developed in America, but we have our issues. What would we prefer? Would we prefer an open market where we could distribute through pharmacy, or do we think dispensaries are better? And what do we think about holding on for dear life like everyone's doing in America with their cannabis industry? Let's hear from you guys.
The only difference between a dispensary and a pharmacy, Saman, is the spelling.
That you have to have a pharmacist.
They serve the exact same purpose. Okay.
Yeah, but the requirements.
You walk in to get your weed and you walk out. Okay, it's the same thing.
It's different.
There's a specialty drug, right? It's a specialty pharmacy.
Yes.
I can't get Tylenol in your place, right?
Right.
Can't buy a bandage for my sprained ankle in your place.
If they allowed us to sell those types of things, we would sell them if people were buying them.
Of course, but they won't. Right.
With Colombia, I know they're dealing with a lot of the same issues, because a lot of these folks are still waiting on U.S. to make the first move. Right, they're still waiting on U.S. to make the first move to move forward on a lot of this stuff, and investors are getting antsy with that. I think it just goes back, just follow the money. Like, how long ago were a lot of these mega corporations that have these giant grows and shit everywhere? How long ago were they incorporated? Their runway might be running out right now, whereas we eclipse that magical 5-year number. A lot of these companies, they pretty much had a blank check going into 5 years, and now they're reflecting on that, like, yo, why has this not lifted off yet? And so I think we're going to see a lot of these. Colombia is more of an established market, but the longer that everybody else waits on the U.S. to set precedent on a lot of these things, the more of these quote unquote crises we're going to see.
You know what it sounds like to me,
the stronger
Rico?
the trap will get in each of these nations too.
You know what it sounds like to me, Rico? Sounds like
What's that?
Sounds like Bidenomics have impacted Colombia.
5 years ago, who was the president 5 years ago, Jason?
Who was the president 5 years ago?
But here's the reality too: is Colombia? We're talking about one of the most corrupt places, right? So it's like
on the planet, right?
Exactly. What $500 million of investment capital went in? How much of that actually went to the businesses and supporting a foundational infrastructure rather than greasing the wheels of the political wheels to get a license or to get
definitely need to be greased.
If you don't have any greasing on the political wheels, you don't really have an industry.
Especially in a place like that. So do you think it takes more money? Does it take billions more to create the foundation that they're looking for to sustain an actual Colombian marketplace? Or do we think that people are just going to grow their weed in places like that, smoke their own shit, and they don't really care locally? And this is just
I think places like that, they're not going to let those plants go to waste. They're going to use them for something.
They're not going to throw them out like $200 million worth of light bulbs into the trash.
Oh, man. Oh,
there it goes.
There he is.
So,
that's right.
So the thing is, I think when we talk about Colombia has always, I think, provided great promise for export. A lot of what I saw in this article was challenges domestically. And I still think that it has some very compelling attributes in terms of its equatorial location,
100%.
soils, the agrarian populations, the landrace strains that come there. So in the long term, I think Colombia could continue to be very, very important. When you read about these articles and it's Canadian companies that are operating in Colombia, I can't help but wonder how much of it is the Colombia issue and the Colombia regulations versus Canadian companies going out and replicating Canadian mistakes that have already impacted other markets, other countries, other import-export arrangements.
Great point.
Would you call that? Would you call that, Yarrow, a Canadian boof trap?
CBT.
I'm gonna take the maple syrup and the mousse. You can have the boof trap. But I think that when we talk about other markets and we see that it's Canadian multinationals in those other markets, we need to look at it with just a bit more granular lens, because how much of that is that market? How much of that is that Canadian hubris or replication of bad choices, bad executional missteps, et cetera, et cetera. It's too bad though, because I think Colombia does have a place on the world stage for cannabis.
And
I think absolutely so. I agree with you.
100%. Like you were saying, it has it's 72 degrees every single day of the year. It's got 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness, right? Every single day.
I mean, and Colombia,
it's a farming country. Everybody farms from the word go. If they can flip them from the cocoa growers,
to the
government was working with is people who were growing, the coca leaf to grow cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with a company down there a couple of years ago, and it's difficult to get things moved along, for sure. And this company partnered with local tribes and sharing the profit with them.
They shared it with the FARC. They shared it with the FARC.
With the FARC, but the local tribes. I'm sure the FARC had their hand out too, right? And the government has their hand out. Everyone's got their hand out.
All they need is a Persian down there. We'll have Iran Contra ×2.
Oh